This year's garden did not start off as expected. We had some circumstances that kept me away from my garden for 6 weeks. Look just how overgrown and wild this garden has become. My tomatoes were huge and falling over. My cabbages were so large they were blocking each other. And look at this broccoli. I missed the harvest window. And these poor peppers were in desperate need of a drink. And my eggplants were being attacked by flea beetles. It was time to harvest the beets, and the strawberries were so dehydrated. I'm out here in the garden, and I am trying to prune up my tomatoes because they have definitely gotten a little bushier than I normally let them do. I normally single stem, which means I let one main stem grow up and then produce all of my fruit. That way it gives better airflow, keeps them healthy longer. I'm not having to pull these plants quite as early. As you can tell, I use elastic to tie my tomatoes up instead of clips. This allows the plant to move if it needs to for high wind situations, rainstorms, things like that, but gives the stem enough flexibility that if, as it grows and that stem thickens, it can not be choked out. So you want to make sure that you tie them kind of, enough to give them some structure, but not enough that you're choking the plant. I had some help while I was sick, and you do excuse my voice, I'm still getting over the cold. And my garden buddy tied them a little too loose. And do you see how that tomato plant's now spilling in the back of my peppers and my borage? That's not a good thing, because as it grows and the stem gets thicker, they're not as bendy. Right here is my blue beauty. Look at those shoulders starting to turn. I was pruning this one, and this plant was going over in my zucchini. And as I try to lift it to put it back on the trellis, it snapped. So I lost quite a bit of my tomato plant there, and it even had a pretty nice sized fruit and some flowers. I'm having to kind of garden differently this year because I have not been in my garden as much due to sickness and travel. But check this out. At the base of that plant, there's a root, an extra sucker. So I went ahead and just tied that up. And that is now going to be my new growing point. So if your garden is treating you like mine is this year, and you're not able to do the things you normally do, this is just your invitation to garden slightly different. Test the boundaries. Don't stick rigidly to this is how I always do it. Do the ebb and flowing with the garden like nature intends. So this may be my best tomato year ever. I may get more yield even though my plants don't live as long because I'm allowing 2 stems and in some cases 3 stems. Or I may not have as great of a tomato year, but you know what? In the end, I'm still gonna have plenty of tomatoes. So hopefully this kind of encourages you that it doesn't have to be, one specific way. There's plenty of ways to garden. So for now, just keep gardening. So this yellow brandywine is exactly what I was talking about with my tomatoes actually branching more than normal. I usually will single stem, take off any suckers and any leaves that's at least a foot to a foot and a half. Anything that's growing straight down that can touch the ground, I'm gonna cut it off. Now a couple times these tomatoes have fallen over on the ground because I've been sick. So I'm already starting to see a little bit of spots. Do you mind, Rigby? Want me to throw the ball? Hold, okay. Sorry, give me a sec. These guys are always out here with me. Oops, I didn't throw the ball very well, did I? It hit the arch. We're babysitting, so that's my son's dog. But him and Mable are ball hogs. Okay, back to what I was saying. I usually single stem and then cut off any suckers. This one happened to be growing some of the biggest tomatoes on this plant, so I'm not gonna trim that off. But if you keep going up, you notice, oops, sorry. If you keep going up, this is where it suckered and gave me big tomatoes. and then it forked. Usually I don't allow it to fork like this. I just keep one main leader. And then that forked again. So now I've got 3. Oh, and then there's a fork here. So I've got 4 stems that I'm trying to decide. I don't really want my plant to do that. That is too bushy. I'm not going to be able to support the weight. And if I bring them all into the cattle panel and tie them all up, it's going to be too bushy here. Not going to have enough airflow. And my plant's going to end up getting diseased and die. Now, the yellow brandywine, if it was a indeterminate tomato where it put on all of its fruit at once, I might let 2, maybe 3 of these stems stay, since I don't have to worry about keeping it alive as long. But this one tends to not last as long as some of my other tomatoes varieties. So I think I'm just going to prune it down. I think maybe just take, oh no, there's a tomato there. So take this back one off and leave this one, because I can tie it to the fence if need be. And I'll just prune one of these, maybe this one, because it's coming, that's a sucker anyway. So instead of one main branch, I'm going to tie both of those up. And that's how I'm pivoting with my garden this year. Look at it, guys. This is the first ripe tomato of the season. Got 2 of them right here. This is my black cherry. And then I also have this guy. He's so pretty. It's almost, there's still a little bit of green. This one is, I can't even see the carrots run away. What is that one? It's a tropical sunset. This is what gardeners live for. Okay, so I'm sitting here pruning my tomatoes, trying to get this garden whipped back into shape, and I happen to notice this. Check that out. This is our Arc Freedom blackberry bush that I just planted this year, and it's already starting to create these amazing blackberry fruits. And look how big they are. I mean, ignore the fact that I have tomato tar in my hands. But look, that is like 2 finger widths of a berry. Cannot wait. These are gonna be so exciting to have as an addition to our homestead. I was just checking on my celery plants to make sure they recovered after being neglected. And look what I just spotted. This is a tiny little ladybug who just emerged from her pupa. Her wings must have dried, but see how she has no spots? That's because she will get them in the next couple of days. It's kind of nice to see ladybugs all over your garden. I find them not just in my pea plants now, but I find them in my green stalks. I found them on my strawberries. I find them in my potatoes. All right, you gonna give it so I can throw it? Okay, drop, good boy. Go away. So, if you put the systems in place to grow an ecosystem, your garden is going to go ahead and become a nursery for all these great beneficial insects, like that little ladybug who just disappeared. And they'll fight the bad guys for you. I've just finished doing all of the garden maintenance that I am going to do. My garden is finally whipped back into shape. Then my carrots, look at those beds, much better. Definitely something I still need to prune a little bit of my leaves here on my squash so that they can be pollinated a little better. But look how much better these tomatoes look. Every week I thin my carrots a little bit. So that is going to allow for a little bit more airflow. Just look, lots of space. This will be my fall planting of cabbage and brassicas. These are the carrots I just brought in, but much better. Everything's still thriving. My beans are still absolutely producing massive amount of leaves. And my tomatillos are forming. Got some peas going to seed for next year. I'm going to be planting some beans on that trellis. Strawberries looking great. Kale and celery survived. Oh, we did make some compost bins. Just poked some holes, 1/2-inch holes in these are food grade brute trash cans. And I've got one more over here. And just from all of the stuff that I have pruned in my garden, this is almost full. I'll show you. This is where I kept my leaf mulch. I need to transfer it to this, but check that out. That's gonna be my fertilizer for next year.